Welcome, Motenta people. Yul Brynner brought Hollywood to a breathtaking pause with his talent. The man would go on to win Tony and Oscar awards. Those are not the only things he won, as he also won the hearts of his fans, especially women. Yul lived a life of adventure and one of passion, but that was his bane. Excitement and passion come with recklessness. For Yul, that recklessness was costly. Was Yul Brynner a drag queen? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Motentas channel. Yul Brynner, the king of Broadway. If anything, Yul Brynner certainly had a flair for the dramatic. The man who came from a wealthy and historically rich family would create an exotic origin for himself. Amid the showering flashes of the camera from members of the press and the multiple stabbing of microphones towards him, Yul would proclaim that his real name is Teji Khan, a Mongolian. Yul would say to the press that he had a Mongolian father and a Roman mother. The man would then say he was born on an island in Russia called the island Sakhalin. Today his name would be Julius Brynner. Tomorrow it would be Yul Brynner. And the next, it would be Julius Brynner again. Each difference in his name gave the press material to draw in audiences. In a way, he used the press to make himself a man of confusing origins. He played the press just like he played the audience, with his heart-gripping performances on Broadway. Yul, calling himself Mongolian, is perhaps just him staying in a character he ended up playing for over 30 years of his life, and more than 4,600 times. He played the role of King Mongkut in the Broadway show The King and I. To play that role, he shaved his head, and this added more effect to the exotic background he had created for himself. The Mongolian playing the role of a king whose country had rich ties with Mongols. No wonder the press and the audience alike went agog. Testament to the exoticness that this Yul Brynner was a mystery, and people love a good mystery, Yul would say, "People don't know my real self, and they're not about to find out." It seemed he loved being shrouded and took some form of solace in that. However, Yul himself would confirm some part of his exaggerated origin was true. He admitted that he truly was of Mongolian descent. He reportedly said, "I am just a nice, clean-cut Mongolian boy." Even his closest friends knew next to nothing about the origin of their friend. However, one of them, J. Lee Thompson, believed Yul's past was filled with hurt that he couldn't bear to relive, hence the tall tales. Thompson revealed something that most people would not believe the actor was capable of when discussing the mystery of his origin. Thompson said, "We, his friends, knew that somewhere there was something that had hurt him in days gone by. Here was this man who was the king, who overpowered everybody that he came in contact with, and yet you would see him sometimes sitting down and a glimpse of tears would come to his eyes, and he would be thinking deeply about something. I knew that Yul, with all his bombast, was also a very human person who had been hurt and had largely succeeded in covering up those wounds." It was true that the magnificently framed actor carried some hurt in his past, but it didn't affect his performances. You could even say they helped shape him into the amazing actor he was during his time. His past influenced him to win a Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical in 1952, and an Academy Award for Best Actor in 1956. Although we must add that his two awards came from The King and I, a Broadway musical later adapted into a film, Yul did this while sporting his signature bald look. That bald look is as every bit of his legacy as his awards and Hollywood Walk of Fame, which he got on the 8th of February 1960. Yul's perpetual shaved look created a trend among men. Before he made the look a sexy look, balding men resigned to letting their hair grow in patches all over their heads. But with Yul, a shaven look became sexy. The look gave Brynner an unmatched appeal, and other men longed to have this appeal, and thus they imitated the Yul Brynner look. It's amazing how people can accept what they initially thought was unusual when they see someone doing that same thing confidently. Yul had a great Broadway career, but he also acted in different films, which were mostly action, so he was always associated with the highest level of male virility, and his stern look certainly added to that macho effect. Plus, comedy films weren't exactly his thing. He tried 2 comedy films in 1960, Once More with a Feeling and Surprise Package, both directed by Stanley Donen, and both were amazing flops. Although they being a flop could be due to people's strongman perception of him, they were not ready to see him in another light. But Brynner himself had an unserious, goofy side that he wanted to explore. Contrary to public opinion, he also had a feminine side. The combination of these two aspects led him to The Magic Christian in 1969, a comedy where he had an unbilled role as a drag queen. Yes, Macho Brynner donned a woman's clothes and tried to pick up a man on a ship. The man, the king, Brynner, would go on to live a short life and die from circumstances of his own making. He was also one of the people that fell to the curse of stardom. Marrying 4 wives and having affairs in between, 2 actors can't manage together. Someone has to give, said Virginia Gilmore, Yul Brynner's first wife, whom he married in 1940, and they had a child, Yul Brynner. In that relationship, no sir, it wasn't Yul who gave up his career. Hollywood had its fingers wrapped around Yul so tight that he wasn't about to give up that comfortable grip. However, in that relationship, something gave. It was the relationship itself that ended. His broken relationship was due to the effects of the curse of stardom, the larger-than-life feeling that it gives to stars. In the words of his own son, Yul Brynner, "For all but a few well-grounded individuals, stardom produces an artificial and unbalanced relationship with the rest of humanity." He added, "Psychologically, the relentless attention of complete strangers is abnormal and gradually induces a state of perpetual self-consciousness, not self-awareness, but self-centeredness. It is not surprising that stars feel entitled to exceptional treatment when privilege is constantly reinforced by acquaintances and strangers alike, and stardom seems to overrule civil conventions. In the midst of such exceptionalism, the golden rule is easily suspended." Brynner would become a diva at times. An example of this is when he was on tour for a play, Odyssey. Brynner would become choosy about the hotels he slept in and wanted the hotels to have a certain color. For his kitchenette, Yul would demand that it should have 12 brown eggs. He had an inexplicable battle with white eggs. However, he wasn't too much of a diva to splash the cash to get what he wanted. He had limits, of course, when it came to women. The multiple attention that came with being a Hollywood superstar culminated in Yul giving in to the numerous attentions that women showered on him. Everyone wanted a piece of that strong-jawed superstar, and he had many pieces to give. Shortly after his marriage to Virginia, Yul found the addiction in enjoying the pleasures of the flesh of different women. Although before he became a sensation, he tended to have lustful proclivities. First, it was his infamous affair with Marlene Dietrich, a fellow actress and singer who was about 20 years older than him. He was 21, and she was 41, when they began their on-and-off passionate whirlwind of a relationship. The affair began a few years before his marriage to Virginia, and their passion flowed for years across the sands of time. The affair would continue when he married Virginia and in subsequent marriages. How long did his affair with Marlene last, you wonder? Some reports have it at 20 years. Marlene was his true love and the woman who helped him become the ladies' man. Some say he remembered Marlene upon his death when he was 65 years old. His son would describe the romance between Yul and Marlene as a romance which would continue off and on for 2 decades, was relentless and passionate. However, it wasn't this affair that cost him his marriage to Virginia. It wasn't Marlene alone that was the sole recipient of Yul's wand. Yul's charm affected Frances Martin, a German actress, and they had an affair. However, Brynner wasn't careful enough this time around, and he ended up impregnating Frances, who later gave birth to his love child, Lark, in 1959. Yul became desperate to hide this from the world, but Hollywood is great at many things but not keeping secrets. Word got out that he had a secret child, and his marriage completely shattered. Virginia left him in 1960. Lark lived with her mom, and Yul never defaulted in his responsibility of taking care of her. His marriage broken, Yul didn't waste so much time before he had another wife. He married Chilean model Doris Kleiner, the same year of his first divorce. The couple married on the set of Yul's Western film, The Magnificent Seven. The film didn't do well in the United States, but had an audience in Europe, particularly the people of the Soviet Union, who thoroughly enjoyed the Western so much. About 67 million tickets were bought for the film in the Soviet Union alone. The money from the international market proved so much that Yul made a sequel, The Return of the Seven, in 1966, which was equally a hit. Yul made other Western films, Villa Rides in 1968, Invitation to a Gunfighter in 1964, Catlow in 1971, but none reached the heights of the two-part Western film, The Magnificent Seven and The Return of the Seven. On his marriage to Doris Kleiner, the couple had a daughter, which they named Virginia, but true happiness was lacking in that marriage, and of course, there was the issue of Yul's wandering manhood. Word had it that he had some steamy times with other actresses, the more popular ones among them being Marilyn Monroe and Ingrid Bergman. In 1967, his marriage to Doris ended, but not his love life. The search for the right partner for him continued. During his marriage to Doris, he renounced his United States citizenship. Brynner was in trouble at the time, and he owed a large amount of money to the United States in the form of taxes. After naturalizing as a United States citizen in 1943, when he was 23 years old, Brynner never paid taxes. Working on tours and films that took him out of the country didn't do him any favors here, as he became unqualified to have a tax exemption. However, in 1965, he renounced his United States citizenship, as paying all those taxes meant he would lose a significant amount of his money. Yul loved his money. As if to celebrate him not being a citizen of America anymore, he married a French socialite, Jacqueline Simone Thion de Lechaume, in 1971, and they adopted 2 children from Vietnam, Mia and Melody. His choice of adoption was due to his passion for refugees. His passion for refugees stemmed from what he saw when he was collecting refugee stamps. He took up the post of special consultant on the refugees for the UNHCR, and he used his popularity to bring the plight of refugees to the world. Sometimes going into refugee camps was unsafe and volatile, but Yul, he had ice running through his veins, and despite the volatility of the situation, he would still visit these camps. Part of his efforts included 2 documentaries on refugee challenges. Soon he and Jacqueline would go their separate ways. In 1981, Yul wasn't done yet. He would marry his 4th wife, Kathy Lee, who would be his last. Unlike the previous wives, divorce didn't pull them apart. Death did. Cancer of the throat struck him when he was 63 years old, and even Yul would later reveal that he had it coming. Just as he wanted to perform The King and I for the 4,000th time, he discovered a lump in his vocal cords. The good news is that his throat was fine, but the bad news was his lungs weren't. He had gotten a lump of cancer in his lungs, which was the inoperable kind. And if that wasn't enough, he had a tumor near his heart. It was a double whammy, one he knew he may not survive. For the first time for Yul, the show wasn't going to go on, at least for a while, that is. The allure of Broadway was just too much for Yul to resist. Despite his hurting throat due to radiation, he would still continue to perform on Broadway, but his performances were less than optimal. Yul would say to his son, "Cancer is a real poison at the box office." Yul had his last performance the same year of his death, 1985, and he also made all forms of awareness about the harms of smoking. He started smoking cigarettes when he was 12, and he was so addicted that he would smoke up to 5 packs a day. Brynner went everywhere with his cigarettes, and some of his photographs had him holding them in his hands. All of this stopped when he got sick, and he gave an interview against smoking when he was on air on Good Morning America. He also contacted the American Cancer Society to create an anti-smoking commercial. In that commercial, he stared directly into the camera and spoke honestly as he said, "Don't smoke. Whatever you do, don't smoke. If I could take back that smoking, we wouldn't be talking about cancer. I'm convinced of that." Brynner's death reverberated through the industry. The man who had made exciting films like The Brothers Karamazov in 1958, Anastasia in 1956, The 10 Commandments also in 1956, among others, would be no more. However, in death as just as he was alive, he was celebrated. He continued to linger in the memory of his fans and kin. In 2012, a statue was built for him. The statue was placed right in front of the home he was born in Vladivostok, a home he and his family had to flee during the rise of the Soviet Union. Yul had lived an exciting life since he was born in 1920. He has a rich heritage with Swiss, German, Russian, and Mongol ancestry. Circumstances made him and his relatives move to Harbin, China, during the rise of the Cold War, a move that took all his family's connections to be successful. Abandoned by his dad when he was 6 and moving from China to France, Brynner did a lot of traveling. It was in France that his many talents came about, and so did his obsession with cigars began. He hung out in unsavory bars in France, but he did make some musical memories with the gypsies he met there. They played a role in helping him harness his talents. Seeking more challenge, he joined a famous French circus, Cirque de Hiver, where he performed as a trapeze artist and hurt his back. The injury introduced him to the pleasures of opium, an addiction he would later conquer. Tragedy struck when his mother got cancer and he had to move with her to America. It was there that he received some professional tutelage on acting from the great Michael Chekhov while working as a radio announcer. He began his career with the odd Broadway show appearances. In one of these shows, The Lute Song, he would meet Mary Martin. It was Mary who encouraged him to audition for the role that would make him the king. Without her, there wouldn't be the King and I as we know it. Brynner lived a life of adventure. Sadly, he learned the lesson of curbing his excesses in death. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Yul Brynner couldn't resist women. Clint Eastwood is well aware of this situation as well. Why Clint Eastwood never stopped making children? Let's find out from this video.